So the public data set that I chose to use for my final presentation is the population in the United States. And so what I'm doing is comparing different states in of course the United States, and not all of them, but just some that I would think that have varying population density, such as New York and Florida compared to us in Kentucky and Alaska. And the different ways you could kind of represent this data is by age group. And so as you can see, you can click 0 to 4, and the data set varies from what it did before. Or you could also sit there and do it by male or female, and that also varies the information. So that's just a brief overlay of what I plan on doing for my final presentation. So I chose a bar graph to represent or kind of compare housing units to population. And as you can see, the population is almost double the housing units, suggesting there's 2 or more people in each house. For my second chart, I did housing units alone to kind of represent or get an idea of how much housing is in each state. And for my third chart, I used a pie chart, and this is so that you can kind of get a feel for how much population each state actually has and its total percentage in the country. So the data set that I chose to do was the 2012 census, same as I used in Module 4. And basically, I used population as my data type, so you can see the spikes in these little blue bars, which represent the population in certain states. And I did do it by state. For latitude and longitude, I chose the position of each state's capital, just to kind of center everything and have it widespread so you can get a better look of the data. And with this, you can kind of play around with it and position it to where you can see the borders of the states, but you can also look at it from an angle and see, oh wow, like Kentucky has not quite as many people as other states such as Texas, which has a spike that goes pretty far out, as well as California, which too has a spike that goes really far up. And you know, you have little states like Oklahoma here that have barely anybody in there, and this just kind of gives a fair representation of the population. And then the SketchUp item that I made was, it's basically a little circular house looking object, and says census on it, and that's just kind of to, you know, represent the data set that I used and make it relevant to what the topic was. So this is my Google Earth presentation.